All right, so today we are diving into Stephen King's 1/1/2263.
Ooh, a big one.
It is a big one, 849 pages of historical fiction and sci-fi, and even a little bit of romance.
Yeah, a lot going on in that book.
A lot going on. So we are going to help you figure out, is this one worth your time?
And right off the bat, yes. Yes, it is.
It is.
For the right reader.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Who is the right reader? I'm already picturing like a Venn diagram of history buffs and Stephen King fans and hopeless romantics, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're getting warmer. It's definitely for somebody who loves to get lost in rich historical settings, especially the 60s.
Okay.
And, intrigued by the idea of changing the past and exploring the ripple effects. And yeah, a bit of romance doesn't hurt either.
All right, so 849 pages. What is the story really about?
The SparkNotes version.
Yeah, give me the spark notes.
Okay, so we meet Jake Epping, ordinary English teacher, who stumbles upon a portal to 1958, and his mission, if he chooses to accept it,
Ooh.
prevent the assassination of JFK.
Talk about high stakes. Now, I've read a couple Stephen King novels, and the man can scare me. Is this one going to keep me up at night?
It's not a typical King horror fest. There are moments of suspense, especially when dealing with like the darker aspects of the past. But think more like The Green Mile, The Stand, that kind of tone.
Okay, more historical and emotional weight than, jump scares.
Yeah. 1/1/2263 is really all about immersing you in the atmosphere of the 50s and 60s. And he doesn't shy away from the complexities of the era. The good, the bad, and the downright ugly, honestly.
So you get like the soda fountains and the sock hops, but also, the segregation and the Cold War paranoia and all that.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, I remember some reviewers saying the middle section dragged a bit. What's going on there?
That's where the romance element comes in. Jake settles into this small town, Jody, Texas, and falls for the librarian, Sadie. And it's a really beautiful love story, but I could see how some readers felt it took away from the main plot.
Right, so it's not just a race against time to save JFK. There's also this whole other layer of, like, personal stakes and emotional depth going on.
Exactly. It's a real balancing act between his mission and his life in the past. Think of it as a slow burn that builds to a powerful climax.
Okay, all right, you've piqued my interest. But time travel, how does he handle that? It's all like wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff?
No, not at all. He keeps it pretty grounded, relatable. Jake experiences the past as an outsider, so there's a lot of wonder and apprehension. And the rules of time travel are very clear. Every change has consequences, sometimes unforeseen, sometimes devastating.
Yeah, that butterfly effect, I always love that in time travel stories. Were there any, like, Goodreads reviews that you came across that just really nailed the essence of the book?
One reviewer described it as a love letter to a bygone era, but with a clear-eyed understanding of its flaws. And another one said, King at his most human. And I thought that was really spot on. It's about the choices we make and the people we love and the enduring power of hope, I think.
King at his most human, huh? That's not usually how I think of him. But I guess, like, with all this emotional depth you're talking about, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think this book really shows, King's ability to create these characters that feel real, relatable, even in, crazy situations.
Okay.
You really find yourself rooting for Jake, feeling his, heartbreak and questioning, like, what you would do in his shoes.
Okay, so we talked about, the setting and the vibe, but how does King, like, bring the 50s and 60s to life for somebody who hasn't lived through them?
Well, he's so good at just weaving in, like, these details, the music, the fashion, even the slang, but it doesn't feel like a history lesson,
Right.
Like, there's this great scene, Jake takes Sadie to a drive-in.
Oh, cool.
And King describes everything, the cheesy commercials, like the taste of the popcorn. You can practically like smell the exhaust fumes and hear the crickets,
That's awesome. You mentioned earlier he doesn't shy away from, the bad stuff from that time period, too. Did that feel realistic?
Oh, yeah, totally. He tackles racism and sexism head on, showing how those prejudices really impacted, daily life back then.
Okay.
There's this one scene I remember where Jake witnesses a black man being refused service at a diner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just this stark reminder that even in this seemingly, idyllic past, there was still a lot of injustice happening.
Right. It makes you think about, like, how far we've come, or hasn't.
Exactly. He doesn't preach or anything, but he really invites you to, think about these issues through Jake's eyes.
Okay, so we got the setting, characters, big themes. What would you say, like, what is the thing that makes 112-263 worth it?
Hmm. I think it all comes down to connection. Jake's connection to the past, his connection to Sadie, and the connections he forms with, you know, everyone whose life he touches.
So it's not just about, like, stopping the assassination, but also about this um, personal journey, right?
Yeah, and the relationship. Yeah, exactly. And King just explores those themes with so much um, heart. You're invested in his mission, not just for the historical reasons, but because you care about what happens to him.
So you're saying, like, you really feel for this guy.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, but we got to address the elephant in the room. Some people think it's too long.
We did touch on the pacing.
Yeah. And honestly, yes, it's not a book here devour in a weekend.
Right.
It's a slow burn. There are definitely spots where the pace, dips, especially during that long section in Jody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if you're the kind of reader who likes to really savor a well-crafted story,
Mhm.
those slower parts, they let you connect with the characters, the setting,
It's like the difference between like a quick snack and a five-course meal.
Exactly.
Sometimes you got to slow down and appreciate every bite.
Yeah, and just like that meal, there are these flavors and nuances that only come out, over time.
Okay. All right.
He's a master at foreshadowing and planting little seeds that you don't even realize are gonna, pay off later.
Were there any other like smaller details, writing quirks, whatever, that stood out to you, good or bad?
One thing I noticed was his use of repetition. He has these certain phrases. The past is obdurate. The past harmonizes, And at first it's kind of cool, but it does get a little heavy-handed after a while.
Yeah, like he's hitting you over the head with it.
A little bit, yeah. But on the other hand, I loved all the little nods to his other work.
Oh, really?
Especially It.
Okay.
There's this one part where Jake actually visits Derry, the town from it. It's just like a fun little Easter egg for, King fans.
Oh, that's cool. Love those little references.
Me too. Adds a whole other level to it.
Okay, before we move on, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself before reading 11/22/63?
That's a good one. I think I'd tell myself to just savor the journey. Don't rush through it. Don't get hung up on the length. Just get lost in the story. Connect with the characters and just appreciate all the little intricacies of King's world,
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's so easy to just want to get to the ending, but sometimes it really is about the journey. It really is. Sometimes you just got to enjoy the ride. But speaking of destinations, let's wrap this up. Is 11/22/63 worth the time?
I think for anyone who loves getting lost in a really detailed world, enjoys those complex characters and relationships, and who's just intrigued by that idea of second chances, what ifs, then yeah, it's a big
Yeah. And just to reiterate, not a typical scary Stephen King, right? So if you're looking for like a quick scare, probably not the book for you.
No, not really. I mean, there's definitely suspense and some dark stuff, but the horror is definitely dialed back. Think of it more as King flexing his muscles in historical fiction and time travel romance, even, with a little thriller thrown in.
Kind of a genre bender. So for those still on the fence, who should definitely skip this one?
If you need constant action and plot twists, you might find it a bit slow. And if you just can't stand romance subplots, probably not the best fit. Also, if you're looking for straight up saving JFK time travel, you might be disappointed because, it's really Jake's journey, his relationships that are center stage.
All right, solid advice. So listeners, think about what you like. Stepping back in time to the 60s, all the good, all the bad. Does that appeal to you? Ready for a story that's as much about human connection as historical events? If so, 11/22/63 might just be the deep dive you've been waiting for.
And one last thing, it really makes you think about time. How our choices have these ripple effects. It's the kind of book that sticks with you.
I love that. More than just entertainment, it's getting us to think about our own lives, right? Our own choices. And on that note, we'll leave you with a thought-provoking question inspired by 11/22/63. If you could go back and change one event, knowing the risks, would you? What would you choose and why? Let us know in the comments, and until next time, keep diving.